I feel like the universe has just pressed a big reset button. The energy feels like we're just at square one, but in the best way, where the slate has just been totally wiped clean, and from here, we can create anything. The overall movement that is happening right now is the entire human collective has made an agreement to move to a higher strata beyond the level of fear. This is the agreement that's powering all the turbulence we're seeing in the world right now. In order to shift to that higher level, everything that has kept us moored in the old strata, those are the things that have to be released.
It goes so deep into what we've been taught that it's so jarring to the mind. It threatens it so completely because it's the entire basic understanding and foundation of how the world works. I could totally see people climbing up this vibrational strata and then freaking out because they think they don't have enough air.
Every day when you wake up, you're standing in front of a doorway, a threshold between who you've been and who you're becoming. This is the door of possibility. We'll come in.
Oh, okay.
We can cut the recording if necessary.
Okay, cool. I was just gonna say the last minute of me sleeping, it was like a narrator voice of this, like, you know how movies have like a man narrating and the type of tone of voice he uses, and he's like, you're no longer going to be interested in things that are fun or fascinating because you're moving more into a human being a human. And I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? I was so confused. I was like, I gotta get my coffee.
This was your dream, you said.
Yeah, it's like a narrator guy was like saying this. In my
Whoa.
dream, he was like saying this about collective. It was like, I don't know if
About
it
the
was
collective.
for me or the collective, but I felt like a collective thing. I was included in it.
You will no longer be interested in things that are interesting and fun.
No, that are fun or fascinating, but the visual that went along with it was like doom scrolling or like going out and partying and doing drugs. Like the fun, as in the potentially harming for your body fun,
Yeah,
or like not
right.
conducive to growth fun.
The worship of the flesh. Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool.
And that was like I woke up and then I was like, I have 1 minute that I can sleep. So I put on my 1 minute timer and that was what played.
Wow.
So
Bless you.
thank you.
It almost sounds like a decree spoken over you by like your higher self or something.
Yeah, the voice was like, it's human returning to human.
Hmm.
And then there was like this like shoo, fast movement and then I woke up like a couple seconds before my alarm went off. The 1 minute alarm.
I I love it. I can't think of a better way to have started this podcast. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
I last night, because I guess I'm rereading the Paul Selig books now, so I'm like just starting the second one again. And just last night, I was speaking some of the attunements about, like in these early chapters, they're talking about kind of unblocking things so you can activate your like psychic gifts essentially to become more sensitive to energy in whatever ways it shows up for you. So
yeah.
they've done attunements to like unblock the third eye, and now it was about clairaudience, or really the way they say it very simply is just to be able to hear yourself at a higher frequency. And the first thing that happened when I woke up this morning, when I was still kind of like dozing, like half awake, half asleep, I just heard this tone in my left ear. It was only my left ear. And like you've seen me like kind of when I'm hearing frequencies before, but usually it's this like very high pitched whining kind of sound. But this was lower. It was like a very clear tone that lasted for like 20, 30 seconds, and then it faded. And it was very clear. It was like I was hearing it with my ear. But it was on I was laying on my left side. So if I was hearing anything outside of my ear, it must have been some kind of small speaker in my pillow, which I'm pretty sure there's not. So that was kind of interesting. That was how my day started.
Cool.
Yeah. Um,
Both of us have heard things.
Indeed. Indeed. I thought I wanted to start this episode just kind of. I just want to acknowledge how cool I think what we're doing here is. And it's like as we keep moving forward, it's like this thing in itself is revealing itself for what it is. And I'm getting more and more clarity about what we're doing here and what purpose this podcast serves in terms of the greater collective. And I actually started thinking this just towards the end and as we were wrapping up the previous episode of, so if I go back a couple years and think about when I really started getting serious about understanding manifestation, understanding frequency, and like it was very clear to me that my thoughts had some effect on what was happening around me. I was experiencing synchronicities, I was experiencing manifestation happening, and it just didn't map to the way I had been taught that the world works. And nobody seemed to be actually talking about how to navigate life from this perspective. So people might be talking about, thoughts have vibrations, and, these vibrations draw to them other vibrations, and this is how you create the events of your life. But how many people on the street do you see who are living their lives that way? And in fact, most manifestation teachers, they will like, one of the most common questions is, to what degree should I sit in my room and visualize stuff, and to what degree should I be taking action? And I always got very unsatisfying answers to that. Most people say, well, you should do this to like align your energy, but you also have to take action. But it's like, which one is it? Either you create your own reality or not. Either your thoughts create your reality or they don't. So where does that line go? Or like these thoughts don't become reality, but these ones do. Like that makes even less sense than either option. So this is kind of what I was always struggling with, and what I've spent a very large portion of my time just thinking about over the last like decade plus. And it's taken me a long time to come to understand this stuff. But basically, there is a whole level of experience, or like a whole other level where all of this information becomes experiential. And that is when you actually start embodying it and actually making decisions and living your life as if these things are true, which I see almost none of the people talking about manifestation stuff actually doing and actually living. So I feel that what we're doing here with this podcast is like a lot of it is just to do with navigation. How do we navigate through the events and circumstances of our lives from this perspective that incorporates this understanding of vibration and frequency and these things, right? Like nobody ever gave me the handbook for how to do that. The best you can do in a lot of cases is like some cryptic, esoteric books and things like this, but nobody really gave me the guidebook for like, when this happens in your life, do this, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to lead to that. So here's what you do. Like, I had to figure all of that stuff out. And I feel like that is very much at the heart of what I want to teach, how to navigate. So these like navigational principles. And what we have identified then with this podcast is an archetypal series of steps. Generally, the way, like it's based on how energy moves through the identity structure and at what points it gets snagged up where and what blocks occur when. And when you realize that this is actually a predictable sequence, and that there are certain keys that unlock each of these steps, you'll be able to see it in every aspect of your life. You'll be able to understand the vibrational dynamics of what is happening in your life beyond just like every book you read out there that's more in the kind of self-help world. It's all about like strategizing for how to move things around in the 3D. And once you then elevate and shift and start understanding things in terms of frequency, well, those rules don't apply anymore. And those rules never really seem to work in the first place. I can't tell you how many times I've done something and, I did all the steps, but it still didn't work. Well, what was the missing factor? Well, how was I aligning my energy? And once you add in that layer of understanding, at least for me, I know my life started making a whole lot more sense. So the one of the kind of words or phrases that's been on my mind this week is the idea of like vibrational strata. Strata would be just like when you go up a mountain, there's like layers in the rock, and you'll find like different climates at different levels. As you ascend up the mountain, the climate changes, where at the bottom you might have a lush forest, but then it gets like more barren, and then it kind of goes through these layers of strata till you get to the snowy mountaintop. So if you imagine this, let's imagine that there's this energy field shaped like an egg all around your body. And first of all, that this field is actually you as much as your body is. And that everything that goes on in your mind, conscious and unconscious, what we could call a thought, perhaps, each of those things carry a frequency. These frequencies are then broadcasted around you in the shape of this egg. And since we know that frequencies seek harmony, they seek resonance, so if you have a tuning fork and it's ringing at it's vibrating at a certain frequency, and if you hold it up next to another tuning fork, it will also start vibrating. So this is what we can call like co-resonance. Beyond this egg, imagine that there's just an infinite field of undifferentiated energy, just pure energy potential. So that as this egg moves through this field, it magnetizes to it, or through co-resonance, causes this field to vibrate at a resonant frequency. And your senses then, being translators of vibration, this outer field starts getting translated to each of the senses into the most accurate symbolic representation to that sense. So to the eyes, you will see visual stuff, everything that's in the frequency range of what the light spectrum that the eyes can see. Same thing with the ears, it comes as sound. Same thing in the physical body, it comes as sensation. So your senses are like the tools for how you can navigate, and our human senses are tuned to a very particular range of frequencies. And to kind of max out that train of thought, like if this really is how the world works and how we create our experiences, I mean, I think one reason why many people aren't living like as if this is true is because it sounds absolutely fucking crazy. If you really were to accept that at every level. So wherever you're sitting right now, if you're sitting in a room, you can imagine what's on the outside of that room. Maybe there's a hallway or there's another room. And then I'll ask you, how do you know? You're not in the hallway. You're not looking at the other room or whatever it is. It's an image in your mind. You might even call it an expectation. So if I were to suggest that the only reason that there's a hallway outside your door is because you expect there to be one, like that's really the level it goes to when you start thinking through this lens. So if you're not fully there yet, and I can't say that I'm fully there yet, you know, that's not a bad thing, but I just want to like highlight how contrasting this idea is from how we've been taught that things work. I can keep going, but do you have any thoughts on anything I've said so far?
It's just reminding me of like in 1984 when 2 plus 2 is 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you know? Oh, and then, people that read it, they're like, well, obviously it's not. It's 4. Well, also, how do you know? Because that's just what everyone else is. It's the shared agreement and expectation that it should be 4. So, yeah, I like what you were saying about how the hallway analogy, how do you know? Because through this lens, it's just an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes so deep into what we've been taught that it's so jarring to, I don't know, the mind, the psyche, that it almost it threatens it so
Yeah.
completely because it's the entire basic understanding and foundation of how the world works. So, yeah, I could totally see people climbing up this vibrational strata up the
Mm-hmm.
mountain and then freaking out because they think they don't have enough air because that's the expectation as they get higher and climbing back down or falling off of cliffs and throwing
Mm-hmm.
themselves off because they no longer want to be here. They don't think they can survive in it. So
Right.
I
Right.
guess this is kind of what I feel like is the work that we're doing as well through this podcast is helping people to acclimatize. We're like
Mm-hmm.
Sherpas, vibrational Sherpas through this.
Vibrational Sherpas. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Um, I think another reason why I think this podcast is so cool is because, uh, well, first of all, it's the first time I felt so connected with the collective, like in the midst of a project, and even the timing of each episode and how it lines up with what's happening in the collective. Even so, just 2 days ago, I was on my way to a coffee shop to like do some co-working with a friend of mine, and just on the way there, I had this idea pop in my head, sitting on the back of a motorbike, of this like letter idea that I posted the other day, where you can basically write me a letter and tell me about all your problems, and I'm gonna write you a letter back. And just like a fun little idea of just another way I could help people. But the first letter I got back is really like where this woman is in her journey right now is like exactly on point with what we're discussing in these episodes. She's just kind of leaving her old life behind. There's been a divorce, and she's moving into this totally new chapter. And she mentioned kind of some of the emotions and things that have been coming up was partially like kind of some guilt about kind of leaving behind these things, and also like anxiety about moving forward. And she specifically mentioned imposter syndrome. as she's stepping into this next thing, and it's like it's almost like I can see it in front of me. Like, here's this doorway, and there's emotional attachments on both sides of it. The things that the mind is reluctant to give up on this side, and the things that it's anxious about on the other side. And you can see these almost as like vibrational currents that you're moving through as you're stepping through these doorways. So that was just a cool confirmation. Um, just another thought I had on the whole vibrational stuff and how you create your life through co-resonance, through the agreements that you hold, through what you're vibrating through your field. Um, so somebody might ask, well, if I'm going someplace I've never been before, how does my mind know what to expect? And like, why do places look the way they look if you've never been there before? So this then expands our understanding to realize that everybody, dead or alive, at any time, has also carried their own vibration. And every place you go, is something the guides talk about in their books, is how every location holds the imprint of everybody who's ever been there. Your consciousness like leaves a signature through everywhere you've moved through your interaction with the vibration of a place or a person. It's like everything is in co-creation. So there is this collective, all kinds of agreements that exist in the collective. So the world you're moving through isn't just your own, but it's the co-creation through the collective agreements of everyone. So that's just a whole different picture and a whole different way of understanding this world that we live in, and the society and the culture that we live in. I saw you smiling at that part. What's coming to mind for you?
I just thought that was so funny because I literally just had a session with a client like 3 days ago, and that was a huge topic of the session. Was speaking about how there's a collective agreement in every location that people have ever been in. And so if you go back to your childhood home to visit your family, where you had all of the tumultuous times of like being in your teens and everything, you might find yourself reacting more like when you had been younger.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why I think when people move house to a brand new place, it just feels like so much weight gets lifted off because all of the frequencies of what has occurred and all of the energetic signatures that have kind of been like left in different
Mm-hmm.
areas, which I do believe also that those things can be cleared and worked through. Those are just kind of
Yes,
like
for sure.
additional hooks where
Mm-hmm.
the experience gets stuck over. But if people don't know how to clear that stuff, oftentimes you'll find them just kind of like bouncing from place to place to place.
Yep.
And the same thing happens even with like human interaction. So it could just be bouncing from person to person to person,
Mm-hmm.
trying to run away from a particular energetic signature that actually needs to be cleared through, not to just leave and seek it out somewhere else because the agreement is still at that level. Oh my goodness.
Bless you.
Yeah. I just was
Yeah.
smiling because of the synchronicity of how that had lined up perfectly with
Mm,
what I was just talking about. Oh my
it's
gosh.
interesting you're talking about houses. I know so many people moving right now, So it really seems like the whole collective is at this like rebirth sort of position right now. I'm moving out of this house this month, and two of my best friends, they're moving out of their place 2 days earlier. Um, so we're in a season of change, to be sure. I think, like I mentioned, I think we're in a really critical time in the collective right now. I feel like right at this time that the universe has just pressed a big reset button, and it's the energy feels to me like we're just at square one, but in the best way. It's like the best kind of square one where the slate has just been totally wiped clean, and from here we can create anything. That's been the feeling in my life. So many old cycles have been closing out this year, just like one after the other since the start of the year, and that's been like quite tumultuous. But it's like it's clearly leading somewhere, and I think we have just crossed a critical tipping point in that. And I'm seeing these things in my own life, and I'm also in sessions with people every day. So I think both of us are kind of in a unique position to be able to see these patterns playing out, like these collective patterns playing out, not just for us, but for the people that we're working with. And it's very interesting. So I have to assume that what we're talking about here today is going to be relevant for the people in the collective listening to this at this very precise timing. Imagine, by the way, I should mention this also. I think the overall movement that is happening right now is that the entire human collective have made an agreement to move to a higher strata. What the guides say from Paul Selig's book is that humanity has made an agreement to move beyond the level of fear. And this is the agreement essentially on a collective level that's powering all the changes and turbulence we're seeing in the world right now. Because in order to shift to that higher level, everything that has kept us moored or anchored in the old strata, well, those are the things that have to be released. So, in their words, we are at a time of reckoning, and that simply means that humanity must face itself and all of its creations. And that's what we're doing right now. And like, just getting that, everything that's happening right now in the world makes just so much more sense. All these like scandals coming out in Hollywood and in the music industry, and what's going on in the financial system, and like every major industry is going through a complete like, well, it's a total collective death and rebirth, essentially. So when these things keep happening, whether it's a media scandal, or whether it's an earthquake or a tsunami or like some natural disaster, like it's like all of this energy is being shook loose, is the way I'm understanding it. So you have never acted outside of your belief system. You're
Who,
always
me?
acting.
No, I'm just kidding. Of
You
course,
and
everyone.
you and everybody else. You and everybody else. One of the classic one of the NLP legends,
Richard?
Wyatt Woodsmall.
Oh,
I got this from Wyatt Woodsmall, where he talks about how do you know when someone has truly learned something? What does learning really mean? And when you truly learned something, according to him, is when it changes your behavior.
yeah.
Before that is just a thought. and it hasn't been embodied, it hasn't updated, it hasn't acclimatized or propagated through the physical system. So there is still conflict in the mind about this. So the topic for today, we are at door number 3, which we're actually calling the gate of decision. And the reason we're calling it a gate rather than a door is because this is the first significant fork in the road where a lot of people here will sort of stall or talk themselves out of it. It's the first point where the momentum doesn't carry through the door so easily, and we need to insert our conscious will to move past it. So it's a more kind of significant junction on the path. So we're calling it a gate rather than a door. So door number 2 and door number 3, it kind of nuanced. So where door number 2 was a lot about, it's about the willingness to be seen in that new identity. But then gate number 3 is when you start actually acting as that, when it becomes embodied, when there's the point of no turning back, when there is a clear decision made of how to move forward. I was going to bed the other day, falling asleep, but I was thinking about this, and the metaphor that came into my mind for this was, if a woman is pregnant, it's the moment where she decides to keep the baby. And I don't want to turn this into a whole abortion discussion. That's not what this is about at all. But just that sort of decision threshold where you're like, oh, I'm going to do this now.
There's a gravity to it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how
right?
it feels to the human mind.
So gate number 3 is like taking that leap before you're ready, and it's before it even comes into physical manifestation. But it's that mental gate of going past that point of deciding to keep the baby. Because now your life is going to change. Everything's going to be different. You're going to have to step into this new identity as a mother. And it's like the train is going now, and there's no stopping it. So I thought that was pretty good. I think that's a pretty good metaphor.
I think it's a pretty good one too.
From just a vibrational perspective, the field cannot respond to ambiguity. Or, it can, and it is. And if there is that ambiguity, then that is what will reflect in your life circumstances.
I think the universe is gentle enough that if there is ambiguity, it more likely will reflect the fear of it for you. It's not going to throw you into being this next level version of yourself that you're kicking and screaming to go into. It knows you're standing on the edge of it, but it's not going to shove you. So then that's where there's that feeling, I think, where it's like, why can't I make myself move forward, and the universe isn't conspiring towards this for me, even though I've been trying to put it out there. But if the belief still has any I don't know, hooks or pieces in it that are holding it back, the universe is like, nah, I got you. I'm not going to throw you off the cliff yet. I'm doing the best for you because you can't handle it right now.
It's always a perfect mirror.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you really need to learn to see in your life. One of the first things I tell all my clients is start paying attention to the relationship of your thoughts and feelings to your external environment and what happens in your life. And you'll find that there's always a match. So if there are doubts, if there are fears, those will be brought to manifestation because your external environment is a perfect reflection.
Yes.
So Just think about it. So we got this person who's been, they've been reading some law of attraction books, and they've been doing the visualizing and all of this stuff, and like doing the meditations. I'm doing all the things. Why isn't my manifestation here yet? So if you just pause there and check out how you're feeling at this moment. Why isn't my manifestation here? There's kind of a sense of lack of that. It's an energy of I don't have the thing and I'm supposed to have the thing. Well, that's the energy that you're in. So that's what your environment will reflect back to you. Like it's perfect math. It's a perfect reflection. So if you were in the energy of having the thing, you wouldn't be asking that question. So this way you can always kind of troubleshoot yourself. You see where you are in relationship to the manifestation. You check how you feel about it, and you'll find that how you feel about it and the situation in front of you are a perfect match. So through that understanding of learning that projection comes out and through you, and the external is the reflection, well, now it doesn't make so much sense to go out and attack the reflection, if you will. It's like that Neville Goddard quote where he says that, trying to change the world by force is as useless as trying to change your face by breaking the mirror. It doesn't make any sense. Probably butchered that quote, but that's the gist of it. So the main way that I navigate through my life is by noticing what's happening out there, and then I'm noticing how I feel about it, and then I kind of dig into that and notice what are the beliefs, what are the agreements that I've unconsciously or consciously made that have caused this situation to come into being through co-resonance, right? If you're going to agree that this manifestation stuff is real, that actually makes sense. But if you haven't kind of crossed through that door yet, well, that makes no sense. So again, I want to give people the tools for how to navigate through their life experiences from this totally different point of view. And I'm not telling you that you have to buy into this whole total point of view. I totally understand how crazy it sounds, but try that hat on just as an experiment and tell me if the things happening in your life don't make a whole lot more sense to you that way. Tell me if you don't get a whole lot more clarity for why things are unfolding the way they do.
I think that this also kind of goes back to the previous step of having a willingness as well, because it can be so uncomfortable for some people, especially if they're newer on this journey of like taking in the data points of what their external has reflected back about themselves. I have had a few clients that I've worked with where it's like an uncertainty or like, no, there's no way that I could have manifested this because like I don't have these things. And it's like, okay, well, where are you not seeing it?
Mm.
And then having almost like the willingness and the courage to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to look at it and try it on as this lens for a bit. Because even though this gate feels like once you step into it, you can't go back, technically, like, you still can. It's just the idea of how big, like, the bigness of it that feels like you wouldn't be able to go back. Lots of people fully try things out and put
Mm-hmm.
themselves out there, and then it doesn't work out, and then they just like turn back. They just revert back into their little caterpillar form or whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
which is kind of a cool thing about how it works for us. We don't turn into the butterfly and then get stuck there. I think you can try it out for a bit, or at least pretend to try it out for a bit, and then diagnose it and go back and forth and figure out what your sweet spot is and where you're ready to land. But that's the thing too. It's like where you want to land is usually a comfort zone. So then pushing that envelope.
Yeah. This is people can be stuck here for a really long time.
I think a lot of
Um,
people are stuck here, and then that's when they're on their deathbed being like, I regret that I never did
exactly.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I know several people who just in relationships knew that they wanted to leave the person or get a divorce like 5, 10 years before they did it. But it just took that long to build up the momentum of that potential that it accumulated enough, um, like the momentum got enough to actually reach that willingness threshold. And then it happens. And once again, I think understanding these doorways and understanding how energy moves makes it a whole lot easier, makes it a whole lot faster, because you already, even though you can't see what's on the other side of the doorway, you understand the principles of how energy works, which makes it a lot less scary. Which brings me then to the question of faith and why faith is this giant component in just about any spiritual system is because, well, like people say, I'll believe it when I see it, is kind of the lens most people operate on, which is precisely backward. It's the exact opposite of how it actually works. You see what you believe. Your belief system, in other words, belief equals agreement, those are kind of synonymous in how I'm using those terms. So these agreements or beliefs are the basis of your perception. They are what cause the vibration that then manifests through your senses in terms of your physical experience. But we can't, like, in the process of agreeing to and acclimatizing to a new belief, to a new vibrational potential, we can't see the manifestation of it before it's been fully acclimatized to. So everything that we can see is all based on our past agreements. It's all based on history, all based on past. So we can't see the new. And hence, faith. Faith is literally the trust or belief in the unseen. Hebrews, is it 1:11 or 11:1? I always forget.
My birthday is 11/1.
Sorry to all the hardcore Christians, but the verses. This was actually the first Bible verse that ever like stuck out to me, and from already understanding all this like manifestation stuff from a metaphysical lens, it was like, oh shit, like that's the sauce right there. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I saw a little clip from Myron Golden who was talking about the now, like the sentence starts with now faith. And his interpretation of that is that it's used almost like an adjective. Like, what kind of faith? Now faith.
Mm.
That's the kind of faith. It's not, later or before. It's right now, before you can see it. Faith is the substance. So substance, it's what you stand upon. It's solid ground that will support you. Substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. If we agree to that, the whole world changes, really. If we can operate with that as a working principle in our life, then if that gets fully embodied, like that's a game changer. That's a total game changer.
I think that goes really well with the whole thing of like the expectation of the hallway being on the other side of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, the entire idea of faith was so repelling, and I had zero interest in it just because of the type of spiritual and religious people that I had met before, and I just wanted to keep it away. But when I started to try on the lens of seeing things as everything is agreement, and the expectation of having the hallway there is what brings it about to be there, because it isn't even real there to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
then that actually was the doorway for me to kind of gently land in towards more of a faith way of
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me a very long time, and it happened in stages, just bit by bit, just whatever I was ready for. At any given moment, it was like just the next piece and the next piece and the next thing to surrender to. I've been wrestling with these questions for so long because these two worldviews were, like, in my view, fundamentally incompatible,
Mm-hmm.
of like taking action in the 3D to get things done versus manifestation. It's just, it's like you're navigating through a terrain and you got two maps and the maps look totally different. And like, what should we put our faith in, right? Which map do we trust? And it was clear that the one map didn't work, but the other map seemed really fucking crazy, you know? So yeah, that's something I've just been wrestling with for a long time. And I think one of the things that have helped me a lot was as I started developing my ability to feel and sense frequencies, where I noticed in client sessions that them just sometimes just having a different thought, I could feel like a ripple going through the field. Like their whole field just shifted from them just being able to see a new potential. I mentioned that in the first episode, but I feel that constantly now as I'm working with people, and sometimes even just in conversation with them. I can feel the shifts in the field. So this whole idea of frequencies, which I'd read in 1,000 manifestation books, well, suddenly it got real and it was so much more tangible because I could feel it directly. So end of last year, I was at Wonderfruit, and it was during Wonderfruit that this thought kept sort of echoing in my head. Because what was happening was I was walking around the fields and I was speaking the attunements for everybody. I'm word through all I see before me. I am word through each one present. All this stuff. And I had these crazy moments of, at one point, feeling totally plugged in and connected to the vibrational field of the dance floor. Like, imagine like 1,000 people there, and it's like I understood what was happening in real time, where, well, you got these giant speakers playing these frequencies, and all these 1,000 people here are all tuning their consciousness to that same frequency, and that sets up a collective field. Everybody's harmonizing to the same vibration. That vibration is even then manifesting through their physical system in the form of moving, dance. Everybody was literally dancing to the same rhythm. So it's like their whole minds and bodies got tuned to the same vibration. And through that, I was able to like connect to that whole thing. And I realized also in the same moment, I've done that many, many times before. Just about any time I'd like been really like in the moment, like on a dance floor. But this was like a whole new level of awareness of what was happening as it was happening. And all kinds of insane synchronicities happened throughout that weekend. And the thing that became so clear to me was how frequency is the organizing principle of everything, of events, circumstances, time and space is all organized by frequency. So the thought then that was sort of echoing through my head was, Could you allow the events of your life to unfold by frequency alone? Because, like, guess what? They already are. Everything's already, that's already the organizing principle. So we can move in alignment with that or not. We can act on the basis of that being true or not. And you'll find just about every area of your life that's not working is where you're in violation of that. If you prefer Christian terminology, you're being disobedient to God's will. You're violating the laws of the universe, in other words. It's been, in particular this year, has been a big journey in learning to navigate in this way and surrendering my personal will to that, to simply let my life be organized and dictated by frequency alone. And the willingness to do that, again, this word willingness, came from the realization that this is already so. This is already the principle by how everything works, and it seemed kind of stupid to fight against that, especially seeing how every time I try it, it doesn't work. The next step is the only step. This has been in my head for a lot of years now, and I remember actually my first ever client. This was the big key that unlocked everything for him. He really took that phrase and ran with it. And it's another principle that sort of emerges when you start looking at things in this way. Like, you got the moment in front of you. And we can't, like, again, because of how our consciousness works and the limits of our perception, we can't see more than one step ahead. And in fact, taking that step will alter future steps. So seeing into the future isn't even possible. And I think in this time that we're in now, even less so. I think this is one of those keys as well that helps us move through that door, is from our own, like, noticing our own energetic alignment, realizing that we are energy systems, and the energy of the vibration that we hold is what's being translated out through our physical actions, which means that whatever energy you're in is what's being moved through, is being amplified and perpetuated by the action that you take. So actions taken from fear create more fear. Actions taken in anger create more anger, and so on. So yeah, the next step is the only step. Notice how you're feeling. Is this in alignment with your intention or not? Am I moving out of fear? Am I moving out of joy, inspiration, love? How is my energy system tuned and balanced in response to this moment in front of me? And then being able to sort of navigate from that basis. I was curious to get your perspective on what's happening in the field when somebody steps through this gate of decision. Like, how do you see the energetic frequency of a decision and how it influences the egg?
I think if we talk about it as a decision in terms of a choice to step into what you would say as obedience, or what spiritual people may say as surrender, it causes there to be a release of control over the egg itself, or like the structure of the egg. So because the egg has like a specific movement and shapes and all these things that like are going on within it, you're no longer holding the controls to try to create the egg in the likeness of what you want it to look like, because you saw Sally over there with their egg and you want one that has a similar resonance as that.
Mm-hmm.
that disappears, and then it just allows the egg to actually be like more in integrity, in the sense of like eggs are a really strong shape. Like, I think they're
Mm-hmm.
one of the strongest shapes, and it doesn't really make
Right.
any logical sense why, because it's so rounded, and everybody's all like, but the triangle's the strongest shape. Like, the egg is hella strong. And so when you allow it to just be what it's meant to be, it rejigs it all up, and it's even more stronger, and it, it has like more capabilities. It's almost like the person in an unwilling state, their egg is constructed with like hard labor of trying to force a lot of energy towards making the frequency what they want it to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like a lasting thing because it's not the agreement,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Like, they didn't agree to the egg to be in this. I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. If the egg is like, they want it to be in one shape, and they are trying to force it to be in that shape, but their agreement is not to it to be in the shape because it naturally manifests itself in the way that it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of flips back and forth at the same time. It's like an overlay where you can see what they're forcing it to be, but it's also, you can see what it naturally is at the same time. The material it's made out of, the pattern it's made out of.
It would create an incoherence because you're broadcasting both of these vibrational signals.
And one's through
And
like a lot of energetic force. And the
yeah.
incoherence causes, like, I think just like this extreme permeability. So like
Mm.
you're open and susceptible to more attacks, more giving away of your power, like more control by external forces, and like zero authority or resourcefulness of your own. And when I say resourcefulness, I mean like, where does the word even come from? It's like like, and then source. Like, source is available to you, but if you have these like dual layer flipping back and forth of like an unintegrous egg, the source is seeked outside of
Yep.
yourself and your own channel abilities into everyone else. I think it's really common. This is just what
Literally
came to mind.
idolatry is what
Yeah,
that is.
it came to mind just now, just thinking about like codependent relationship forms.
Mm.
And like that's different from interdependent relationships, which is kind of the more healthy version of, I don't know, intertwinedness. But there's like a codependent thing that can show up. And that doesn't even have to be in a relationship with a person, but it could be codependency through value of how much you make it work. And so
Mm-hmm.
there could be this like continual yearning to be approved and get a raise and do these things, or a party guy
That's
that just
like
drinks so much because he wants to like, he's gaining from it, he's pulling energy through from that, if that makes sense.
mhm.
I don't know how to explain
It's
it.
all like what you're pointing to there. There's a lot, several interesting things. This piece just about where you believe your power comes from.
Hmm.
Now, if everything we've said up until this point about these frequency dynamics is true, the outer world being your reflection, that includes the relationships, the money, like whatever it is, whatever outside thing. But then if you in your mind believes that's where your power comes from having money or security or status, or whatever it is, can you see how that doesn't work just on like a frequency level based on like following this new map? It just like doesn't work energetically. Like the energy doesn't move that way. You're trying to move energy in a way that it doesn't move. Like it's out of alignment with the structure of the flow, which is exactly what you would call idolatry. Like, first commandment, thou shalt not have other gods before me. Thou shalt not worship idols. Like, you should not think that your power comes from anything else, because it doesn't work. Because it creates an incoherence in your field. So if there's a split intention of, on the one side, I want to move into this identity, and on the other side, there's that fear-based stuff of like, oh, I don't want to disappoint my parents. So if you're trying to achieve the goal and not disappoint your parents at the same time, you're splitting your energy. And that's like, you got one bow and one arrow and you got two targets.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck hitting both. But for most people, it's not two targets. It's more like 200. All of their energy is being split, which creates an incoherent field, which obviously doesn't manifest in the way that they would like. Very interesting to me how you were talking about how surrender actually increases the integrity of the field. That's such a cool principle.
Yeah.
Because it's so counterintuitive to the ego.
Yeah, the ego
It
thinks
thinks
that it needs
the more
to.
we control, the more we like get all our ducks in a row and, armor ourselves up, the stronger we'll be. But the more you do that, the more incoherence it actually creates,
Mm-hmm.
which leads to then, incoherent results, incoherent outcomes, incoherent circumstances, and things just not working out because the momentum of the desire is being pulled at. Like, there's not enough momentum because your energy is being split in all these different ways. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. I think this is what that speaks to. This coherence really of energy. This unified, this single intention. All the energy is flowing one way. It's not being split apart and conflicting with itself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that even just makes sense if you think about like a garden hose. Like if you
Mm.
have it, if you twist it all the way to make it like one fine stream, it comes out at just way more pressure and it can go way further versus spreading it out and having the energy go everywhere.
You know what it made me think of as you were talking about that? I just watched this documentary about, it's called The Power of Chi, narrated by Morgan Freeman. And they had this Tai Chi guy, and he was going up against, one guy was a 4-time champion, like strongman champion. And they had 3 of the top MMA fighters, and they had an Olympic fencer. They had a former NBA, like Hall of Fame guy, and all of these like top athletes, right? And they were doing this one exercise where they were just like trying to push him. He was even sitting down, like with no back support. He was like sitting on a rock. And you got these world champion athletes. They're just trying to push him, and they can't. He's just sitting there perfectly still. And the way he explains it is basically the tension is where things get off balance. Or if somebody's pushing against him, if he can detect even a little bit of tension in their body, it's like that's the vulnerable point, and now that gives him control over the energy. So he's saying essentially, if you're fully relaxed, if each of your joints are relaxed, so it's cool to see how these principles translate literally through the physical body, that if you're fully relaxed, if somebody pushes into you, it basically just goes into the earth. Because they're basically pushing against the earth, because you're just this open channel. And he was saying, if somebody's trying to throw a punch, and let's say there's tension in the shoulder, or if the shoulder is stiff, like in boxing, they would punch from the shoulder, but that would then be the impingement, the kink in the hose,
Mm.
But if somebody's completely relaxed and open, it's like they're now they're punching with the power of the earth, because they're fully connected. And I just kept thinking about all of these types of principles we've been talking about today as I was watching that, because like, whoa, this is really cool. I'm seeing all of these principles, like how they are manifested in this realm, and just how clear it is when it comes to these people who really know how to use their bodies, and like being in total harmony with the earth and their environment. Really like some Jedi kind of shit. It was very
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, that's the gate of decision. It's the moment in your manifestational journey where the idea really has to become real for you, and you have the decision to make. Decision, by the way, as opposed to a choice. Decision being from the same root word as decapitate. It means to cut off. So the gate of decision is when you cut off the other pathways and you fully align your energy, you fully commit your energy towards this new potential. In other words, it's the moment you decide to keep the baby, your idea baby, as it were, and move forward on the basis of that being real, because faith is the substance. A little claim or decree for our listeners. On this day, I claim that each one who hears these words will come into a direct understanding of themselves as energy and frequency and word in manifestation, and through that understanding begin to directly experience their energetic relationship to their environment and the circumstances of their lives in frequency, so that as they move forward on their journeys, they will make the highest choices available to them with clarity, discernment, and in alignment with the divine will for their lives. Word, I am word through this intention. Word, I am word. And if you are listening to that, all you have to do is say yes. I say yes to this. I am willing. I agree. And I am feeling that happening right now. Seems to work every time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We're right at an hour 11 once again. Megan, any parting words to our friends who are listening
Oh no.
on this evening? Oh no.
I was just raising the roof to what had just been said. Yeah.
Sweet. If you'd like to go further with any of this, or join us in the live recording studio for the next one, please come and join us in the Possibility House. You'll find the links to that below here. That's our little community platform where we host all of our events and trainings and content and all of that stuff. We got a great group of people in there. So if you like this, you'll like all of that stuff even more. That's it. Thanks, everybody. This was episode number 3, and we will see you next time. Peace.